Welcome back to the Print on Demand cast. On this week's episode, we're going to talk about learning POD the hard way. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Print on Demand cast, ladies and gentlemen. Before we go any further, do me a favor, do us a favor, and like and subscribe and share the show wherever you're at, whatever platform you're listening from. Share the show. Leave us a review if you're on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. It is greatly appreciated. And who is we? I always say us and we before I even introduce the co-host of the show, which if you've been listening for any length of time, you already know who it is. Travis Ross. All the way, what? You're in a completely different locale. The room, the white room. You've been set free from the room that was perennially what, like 2:35. What was the time?
2:35, 2:40, something like that. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, I'm at the house. We're recording a little later in the day. I was at the shop earlier, but I'm here now and really washed out. And if you're on YouTube and you're watching, it's like I don't have any light like shining in front of me. It's all behind me and the curtains and all that stuff. But yeah, doing all right. How's your Monday been?
And my Monday has been busy. It's Mondays and Tuesdays are always really meeting heavy. Mondays, thankfully I didn't have to go into Lakewood today. But I had like a 4-hour meeting this morning, and then tomorrow I'll probably have like a 5.5-hour meeting in the morning. So Mondays and Tuesdays are just shot for any real productivity because it just leaves me the afternoon. So it's a wild time. But Monday has been good. Had a good weekend. Kind of my house is kind of in disarray because we're packing and heading to a new location, moving to Loveland this weekend. So that's exciting and scary and exciting all at the same time. So
I don't know.
That's terrible.
That's terrible.
Loveland is way further away than Longmont from me. So
yeah, that's true. It's probably about a half hour now from where you're at. But
so you get nothing.
That's right.
I'm just going to keep going through these things and just
all of the sentiments about me moving further north. How about you? How's your Monday been so far?
Well, it's been a really crazy last few weeks, and if I could sum it up in a jingle, this would be it.
Emotional damage.
Yeah, and we'll get into more of that in a little bit. But yeah, today was just a lot of oh man, there was a couple meetings in the morning, and then just scheduling things, and like I said, we'll get into some of it a little bit later, but I'm just as busy, man. Even though I don't have 5.5-hour meetings, I have other things. And yesterday I started feeling like I think I'm getting a head cold. And
no, that's the worst.
I know. And it's just, so if I mute or sniff or have to mute to cough or something, you'll know why. But, just dealing with it. I got a really good got a really good night sleep last night. So, hopefully that, is helping. And then of course I'm hydrating, with some beer. So that'll probably help too.
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, we'll get into that as well, but also for the point of interest, let's get into, well, I guess not your weekend, but it was last week. Part of the reason we had to do a rebroadcast during the week last week. So let's just get right into it for this week's point of interest.
Point of interest.
Oh, so touching.
Always just the most emotional bumper that we have. So last week you went to a conference, trade show, something that I've seen and heard of and looked into in the past, and I didn't even know it was in Denver, to be completely honest, because I would have been
Right.
slightly more proactive and maybe got some time off work to go. But podcast movement was in Denver. So tell us, man, how was that? What'd you learn? It looked cool. I saw highlights and a couple of folks that I follow on Instagram who have really well-known podcasts were there speaking on panels. So
Mm-hmm.
interested to hear more about it.
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, it had the word podcast in it, and so I was like, "Oh, PODcast." It's
Yeah.
it's like our show. So that's really the reason I went. But no, actually, it had nothing to do with print on demand. It was all about podcasting, and I actually found out about it the week before, and was like, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be in Denver." We've been doing this for years, and almost 3 years. We're coming up on 3 years. I think we started in September of 2020, and here, we're
Yeah.
recording this on August 28th. So we're, almost 3 years of weekly podcasts. And so I was like, I think this would be a really good thing to attend. So I went, and they had different tracks. They had tracks on like the technical side of things and like how to make your podcast sound better. And I mean, there's every type of podcast represented there, from kind of the storytelling podcasts, the true crime stuff. There's
Yeah.
business shows, obviously. There's tons of podcasts about podcasting, which I thought was really interesting. And so the technical side could be, that rabbit hole goes really, really deep depending on what kind of show you're doing.
Right.
And then, like you said, there was a lot of different panels with different, podcasting celebrities, if you will. And again, I don't want to belabor this point of interest too much, because it's really not about print on demand. But it was really cool. They had, like I said, they had the different tracks. They had one on technical. They had another one on creative. They had like interviewing tips, which we could definitely use. It was like every part of it. It was like, oh, do I go to that one or do I go to that one? Because my podcast definitely needs
Yeah.
both.
Yep.
Yeah, so they had a monetization track, how to get advertisers interested. They had,
Yeah.
ideas for like companies there, tons of vendors, with different services, different hosting services, and then, things like AI was a really big hot topic the whole week,
Oh
which
yeah.
of course it is, and a
Sure.
lot of these vendors are getting into using AI in their platforms, and so they'll have like, you have a hosting platform, you release a podcast, and then you go, all right, AI, do your thing. And it'll like give you the good title for it. It'll give you show notes. Some of them would even like give you blog posts based on your content that you're putting out. And I mean, there's so many things. This AI thing is really, really taking off. And I think, I don't think anybody really totally understands it yet, but
Yeah. No.
yeah, it was really interesting to see how AI is even affecting podcasting, and like these different companies were using it more and more. And so yeah, I mean, we're going to save, we'll probably talk about like what does all this mean for the
Yeah.
podcast. We'll talk about that later, but I could see it, definitely. And I mean, to full transparency, Josiah and I haven't even really had a time to just talk about the different things and the different
Right.
ideas that I came away with. And I don't want to obviously go to the show and like not implement anything I learned. So, um, so anyway, well, at some point we'll do that, and there'll be some, new things probably coming down the pike.
Yeah.
And we'll see kind of where it takes us. But yeah, it was really cool. I literally found out about it the week before, and all of a sudden, someone had emailed me, at our info@printondemandcast.com email address, and was like, "Hey, I'm going to be at the podcast movement next week. Are you going to be there?" And I was like, "The what?" And
Come
I
again?
looked it up. Yeah, and it was in Denver, and I was like, "I need to go to this show." So I literally sent him an email that day and said, "Hey, I missed all your early bird stuff, and so uh, throw a kid a bone. I'll even volunteer. Just let me, go for cheap." And so they didn't let me go for cheap, but they gave me $100 off. And so I was like, all right, well, it's not going to be, it's actually in Washington, D.C. next year. So we'll see if I make it to that one. But
Yeah.
I definitely wanted to go to the one that was like literally in my backyard. So I had a
Yep.
lot of fun, met a lot of cool people, and a lot of cool vendors, have a lot of ideas, have a lot of homework. You come home with that big bag of
Yep.
business cards and, email addresses and all of the stuff. And whenever you go to any trade show or conference,
Exactly.
or something like
Yep.
that, so you just have to sort through it all and figure out, what's next. But overall, super fun. If you are doing a podcast or ever have considered it or want to do one, I would highly recommend checking out Podcast Movement. It's really cool.
Yeah, I'm super excited that you went. Super excited to hear more stuff you came away with, and who knows, maybe next year we'll be having people tell us dad jokes at Podcast Movement in DC. Mainly because I've never been to DC, and it'd be really fun to go see all the sites there.
That'd be a blast.
Yeah, it'd be an absolute blast. So, yeah, check that out again. Like Travis said, if you guys are interested in podcasting, want to start your own podcast, definitely you'll be drinking from a fire hose, which is to be expected from any trade show. We say that all the time. But we'll definitely give you a really good grasp of where to start, how to start, and give you a lot of ideas on what to do. So you'll probably, like Travis said, see some stuff implemented, and that will be from Podcast Movement. And if they work, we'll let you know that it was Podcast Movement. And in fact, I did that. So yeah, all that to say, let's go straight into this week's main event.
Ladies and gentlemen, the main event.
All right, Travis, we're calling this week's episode Learning About POD the Hard Way. Which, yeah, but people are probably wondering, like, what do you mean? What's the easy way? I don't know. But we're here to tell you about the hard way, and more so, Travis kind of sat down and thinking about what to talk about and understanding, we're both coming at this like we've had busy days. I'm on a tighter schedule, so what should we just talk about? Have a conversation more so than necessarily diving deep into some notes about what we want to talk about. So you wanted to share with our audience kind of one of those episodes we do where we just kind of bare our soul, or a little transparent, and maybe it's cathartic in a way for either of us when we're in this position to kind of just process out loud to people who we know have listened to our content, who are loyal listeners to the show, and definitely, if I can use the word fan, which is a strange thing, of the show, fans of the show, maybe not of you and I, but of the content at least. So yeah, man, I'll let you kind of take center stage here and kind of share and give an update about where you're at. You kind of alluded to it earlier, with today being kind of a hard day and last couple of weeks being emotionally draining. So kind of let you catch everybody up.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I've wanted to do just for a while, so I guess what I really wanted to do is just be open with everybody that listens to our show, because I think when you put out content for 3 years and people hear you, and they there's an authority, I guess, that you can build over time, and like people look up to you and they say, oh, well, if I could only do it the way Travis and Josiah do it, or whoever, insert podcast name here. But I don't, it's not always easy, and you have to make hard decisions, and things don't go the way you think they're going to go, and that's been the case with me. And so I really felt like I wanted to just kind of pull back the curtain and just be open and honest with where I'm at with my print on demand business, because I don't want you guys to think, I don't want you to think that I'm not who I say I am, or that, that I'm hiding things, or any of that stuff. So I just want to be honest and open and hopefully authentic, with where I'm at. And so for the last several months, I've been exploring ways to try to keep our production open. And what I mean by that is, many of you know, I have Make Your Mark Design. It's a production fulfillment basically a fulfillment vendor for print on demand products. And we've been doing that for the last 3 years. And we have a facility with employees and all of that. And January, February, and March were really, really hard months. And I don't know why, because December was fantastic. And usually January is pretty dang good too.
Yeah.
But we lost a lot of money in those months because orders went down. And, I had a full staff to pay,
Right.
and I had rent and, bill, I mean, just for example, our electric bill, the first year we were there averaged about $300 a month. And then the last year we were there, it averaged about $500 to $600 a month. Now, part of that is we got some more equipment and, pulled more voltage and et cetera, et cetera. But my point is that expenses kept going up and, profits didn't really match that. Now, revenue did. We were making all kinds of revenue. Our revenue year over year kept climbing, but so did expenses, and that was the issue.
Sure.
And I have a couple of thoughts on that, like why it happened, and one being focusing on our production, like our own products kind of took a back seat to trying to get new clients.
Yeah.
And which we did. We got a lot of clients, and we were serving, I don't know how many clients we had, but, we were doing a lot of production for a lot of people every single day, in addition to our products. The issue that I can't believe that I didn't see earlier is that when you're doing production for other people, you are getting wholesale margins. When you do production for your own products, you're getting retail margins, and you can imagine which ones are better.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
because we focus so much on those fulfillment partners and, those wholesale margins, the retail margins, like year over year, our products, we weren't adding as many, we weren't doing as many things. And so it slowed down, and those retail margins just the percentage of how much retail were we doing and how much wholesale were we doing just continued to, the wholesale continued to grow, but the retails continued to go lower. So our overall profit margins over the 3 years that we were there just shrunk and shrunk. Even though we were doing more revenue, it was more revenue because of the wholesale side, which doesn't have as good of a profit margin.
Right.
So fast forward to this earlier this year, and what I should have done was gone to a shorter production week, like a 3-day production week, because we didn't have the orders that we had had the whole previous year. It just really slowed down a lot. It was very shocking, and so I didn't do that until April. When I finally did say, hey guys, hey staff, I've got to do this. This is where we're at. I'm so sorry. And we had an amazing staff. They were great. They all kind of took it on the chin and said, okay, yeah, we believe, we want to help you and we believe in this business. And they were just great people. And so they went at it, and we slowed down, the production, and made those 3 days a week really, really busy. And we saved some money, but I think it was a little bit too little, too late in the end. So I can't remember exactly when, but I made the decision probably a couple months after that, maybe May, June, probably June. I finally made the decision. Okay, we are not going to fulfill any more products. We're going to focus strictly on our own products, retail, and basically fire our fulfillment customers, which was another painful thing to do, because that was basically saying, hey, thank you for putting your trust in us for so long. Go find somebody else to do this. And that was really hard. Simultaneously, because we weren't doing that production, I had to lay off most of my staff as well, which was, obviously really, really difficult. Because again, these aren't just employees, these are friends, and I was thankful that pretty much everybody had, other opportunities to move to, and it wasn't going to be a financial hardship for them. But I couldn't know that. It was still, still very challenging. And so for the last couple of months, basically we've been making plans and talking to, our landlord, talking to, uh, the new vendor that we're going to
Yeah.
use now to produce our products, because basically I'm shutting down the fulfillment of Make Your Mark design. And so what I've been doing for the last few weeks is moving a few pieces of equipment here. Like I moved a laser engraver here. I've got, a nice heat press. I've got some mug presses. We've got some sublimation that we can do and some laser that we can do. Because we have some local clients that we can still serve with some of that stuff, as well as we did retain, I think, two of our older clients because they just did sublimation, and we
Right.
were able to continue to help them produce their products. And I thought, well, even if I'm a solopreneur, I can still sublimate a coffee mug or a wine
Sure.
tumbler or something like that, or run some laser patch hats, or, I can do that because I'll have more time,
Yeah.
because I'm not focusing on the day to day of a facility and dealing with employees and payroll and all of those things. So the last few months have been, like you said earlier, just really emotionally challenging, um, because you feel like a failure. You feel like, you couldn't make it go and it's your fault. And that is not fun. That
Right.
is not a fun place to be in. And I've gone up and down on well, I have hope for the future, and there is no hope for the future. I've gone, um, a little, not to make fun of bipolar, but that's what it's felt like at
Right.
sometimes.
Right.
I've been really depressed, or I've been really, all right, we're going to do this and it's good. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
Extreme
So,
highs, extreme lows.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give you an opportunity, Josiah. I mean, I know you've known some of this stuff and you've known kind of what's been going on, but for the purpose of our listeners, feel free to ask me any questions, or like, anything you're curious about, and I'll do my best to, kind of share where I'm at with all of that too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, to Travis's point, it's something that um it's been obviously an ongoing conversation. I've known Travis was going through this and lots of decisions being made, but obviously wasn't something that was biting at the or chomping at the bit to be like, yeah, we should talk about this. Because one, it's not my, I'm not the one walking through that. And so I
Right.
think I can't, as I'm thinking about, because I know a lot of kind of the direction you're going, but finding a fulfillment partner, does that
Mhm.
mean your SKUs, you've talked about organization and those spreadsheets that you've had stored up, are those now going to be
Yeah.
even more beneficial when you're transitioning to this new vendor? And what platforms does that mean that you're staying on? Are you still selling the full spectrum of products you used to sell on those platforms?
Mhm.
What does that look? Have you had to pare that down? What's that look like?
Yeah. So, first of all, I'll say last week's episode on organization, was like so timely. And it's been, I'm so thankful. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I'm so thankful for the organization. Even though, we've had to figure some stuff out and some of it's not quite as pretty as it should have been. And
Yeah.
we've had to, like, yeah, fix some stuff and, those types of things. Having that, just that organization with the SKU structure and the design, where they are and all of that stuff, has been absolutely, uh, just pivotal. I mean,
Right.
it's been the most important thing to allow me to go out and find a print production partner. So to answer that question, we're using, primarily we're using Guten,
Yeah.
and I reached out to them and they were able to give me special pricing because we
Nice.
do more products than a
So
lot
much
of
more.
people
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
and more sales, I guess. And so I got some pretty good pricing. A lot of it was on par with like Printify's, um,
Nice.
their premium price. You pay $20 or $30 a month and you get like lower prices. So a lot of it was on par with that. Some of it was even lower than that.
Wow.
But what it's done is, so the other thing that we were trying to do in the kind of, uh, you know, earlier this year when we were trying to avoid this decision was really focus on our retail stuff. And so we've talked about bulk mockup and that program using
Yeah.
Photoshop to, just basically mock up tons and tons of products. And so we've been putting together, SOPs to how does that work. And I've been, Tate, my son, production manager, his last day actually was yesterday. He helped me move some stuff yesterday, and today he started a new job. He's
wow.
still he's still on my Microsoft Teams accounts, so
Sure.
I'll ping him every once in a while for something, but at least for a while until he gets sick of me. But he had been really focusing on creating an SOP for listing new products.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about Guten is that they allow us to create our inventory in Order Desk, which we were already using and still use for the couple of clients that we have. And basically we just had to tweak our print files and put them on their templates, which bulk mockup made it very easy to do. We were just able to knock them out and then create all of those templates for those different products as kind of the last step of the SOP. And load them into Order Desk. So when an order comes in and it's a specific SKU, everything's there. Guten knows exactly what it is. They have the right print file. It goes right in. If there is an issue, and there have been, a few things that we've had to correct or add to the inventory.
Right.
If it doesn't, it just basically has an alert in Guten, and I go in and fix it, or one of my VAs goes in and fixes it. But it's been really a good experience. I've really been pleased with Guten on
awesome.
this whole process. I started with Printify because I was planning on, what's $20-$30 a month to get their good pricing. But they didn't have a way to make me automate or allow me to automate it. I was going to have to, every time I got an order, I would have to go to Printify and create the art.
Gross.
And then pass that order from Order Desk afterwards. So if I got 20 orders in a day or 50 orders in a day, or in Q4, I got 200 orders in a day, I got to go create every single one of those. And so it just was not.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like the move.
Yeah, that just didn't work for me, and I tried to get them to, bend and break, but they stuck to their guns. And but the cool thing about using Order Desk is I don't have to worry about what integrations Guten has, because all they do is integrate with Order Desk. And my Order Desk is the thing that integrates with Walmart and Amazon and Etsy and Wish and Bonanza and, and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And if I want to start a second Amazon account or a second, Walmart account or whatever, I can just continue to do that, and pass those things through to Guten in a pretty efficient way. So overall, it's been a good experience with Guten. And it's also obviously opened up a whole new bunch of products that we can now do and put our designs on. And so we've been doing a lot of that. We did have to, stop a few things, like we can't really find anybody to do the wooden signs or the specific type of pillows that we do, or the specific type of tea towels that we do. So we had to pivot a little bit there, but overall, there's enough other products that still give decent margins. I mean, it's nowhere near the retail margins, but I don't have near the overhead now either. So, so as of September 15th, I'm out of our space completely. I've got some listings on eBay for some equipment. I've got some listings on Facebook Marketplace for some equipment, and just trying to, kind of liquidate what I have at the shop. So I can clear it out for my landlord. And then obviously we've got, I still have a few things to bring from the shop here, but it's mostly moved. Now it's mainly just setting it all up and, kind of creating a new space to do, much less production, but still having that space that's efficient and, just makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. If you're watching on video, you see a pretty drastic outfit change, and Travis is actually a prisoner again in his room where it is 235 perennially all the time. Reason being is schedules have been a little nuts, and I had to go, and I wanted to continue the conversation that we've been having on this episode, but the time that I had would not really facilitate a good conversation without me going over. And then if I was late to where I was going, I'd have to deal with my wife. And so I figured that it'd be better just to take a quick pause. And so if you're watching this, Travis and I now look completely different, but we're going to be talking about the same thing that we've been chatting about this episode so far. So, Travis, we left off and you told us you had kind of found a supplier for Guten, or through Guten rather, talking about kind of scaling back some solutions maybe, or scaling back some products and maybe adding some new stuff that Guten has for you to add to your catalog. But one of the questions that I wanted to ask, I know that this has been, there's probably been a lot of different iterations or solutions you maybe been kind of going back and forth or vacillating, like I could do this or I could do this, and let's crunch some numbers, and how does A pan out, how does B pan out, and so what made you ultimately, let's say that this one solution is to sell everything and just get out of the business completely, and another solution is to go out and find rounds of financing and angel investors. Let's say those are the two extremes. How did you land where you're at now? Because I know your heart in this whole thing, obviously you would have loved to have been able to keep Tate on your payroll and keep a lot of the staff, but through this journey of kind of having to sit with some of the reality of where you're at, how did you land at the position where you're at now, and do you foresee it being a long-term thing? Do you see maybe some more growth or steps towards getting back to where you're doing more production in-house, or where does that sit with you at the moment?
I mean, that's a great question. And part of it would require, a crystal ball. But I think really the decision really came down to just the financial element of it. We had a really bad January through March, and like I said, the revenue was always trending up, but the margins were trending down. And so, I mean, I think in the end, I really enjoy, the freedom that owning my own business gives to me, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in a production facility for me to still own my own business. And so, I think it was definitely a roller coaster, because it would be like, I would make a decision and be like, okay, this is the direction we're going. We're going to, we're going to sell, we're going to move, we're going to blah, blah, blah. And start putting things into motion. And then, I had probably 3 or 4 people come in at the 9th hour and say, hey, we might want to buy everything. We might want to continue production.
Right.
Would you be willing to stay on and like manage, the Colorado operation of our big business or whatever? And it would like just get my hopes up. I'm like, well, maybe I don't have to go through all the, stuff that that I'm now going through. And all of those things kind of came to an abrupt end, one way or the other. One guy didn't ever, he was like, hey, I talked to my buddies and I'm going to let you know, I'll contact you this week. And 3 more texts from me to him, and never heard from him again. Then that happened, and a couple of people were just like, yeah, I don't think, we're too early in our business to do that. And it was like always just kind of the wind out of the sails. It felt like, someone pulling the rug out from under you again. You're like back in the doldrums. And so that's been a challenge. I mean, the emotional stability of Travis for these last few months has been a challenge, and I'm so thankful that I have, my wife that's very supportive of me, and, will support me whichever direction I go. She's amazing. We've been married over 25 years now, and I love her to death. And then, I'll be even more transparent. My counselor, I've been seeing a counselor for about a year now, working on some just emotional, stuff. And it's really helped, having somebody to talk to, and being kind of having a scheduled time every week that I kind of have to process all of the things that are going on.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so, from that perspective, that has all really helped me kind of, come to this place where, while I'm still scared, while I'm still not sure about the future, I feel like thus far I've dealt with it in a way that has been relatively healthy. I mean, I remember a couple I don't know, a month or two ago when I was really down and we had to record a podcast and I was like, I don't know what we should talk about. We should just stop this podcast. This is so stupid. I don't know anything. I'm the worst print on demand person ever. And I don't know, I can't help anybody. And I was just really down, and
Yeah.
then put on my happy face for the podcast,
Yeah.
and again, just pull back the curtain, guys. A weekly episode, no matter how you're feeling, it can be challenging,
Yeah.
and it has been. But I am, you know, when I just stop and reflect, I am hopeful for the future. I don't know what it holds. I mean, I'm going to continue to, we're going to outsource most of our products. We'll do a few in house and then a few for a few other people, and we'll see where I'm at. Obviously we're coming into Q4. I heard
Yeah.
somebody said like Q4 is only like 40 days away or something like that. I'm like, or
My
60
God.
days. I can't
Oh
remember
yeah, I
exactly
guess
what it is, but
October technically, right? And so
yeah.
we're almost
Yeah. It's like,
Friday, September 1st. So that's
yeah.
30 days.
Yeah. And so, if I can make it to then, we can list a whole bunch more products. Maybe, Q4 can really
Yeah.
reinvigorate me and get me excited about the business. I do have several different like kind of projects that
Mhm.
in the print on demand space that I'm excited about that I'm going to be probably leaning into in the next couple months to try to get them launched before Christmas,
Sure.
like a Shopify store. I mentioned it on the Facebook group. Or no, I mentioned it on RJ. We had a post. He was talking about political things, and I was talking about how did pretty well in the 2020 elections with a particular thing that I was doing, and I'm thinking about doing it for the 24
Yeah, yeah.
elections as well. And you know what it is, but
Uh-huh.
so thinking about launching that again and trying to capitalize on the Christmas season, and then hopefully like some Father's Day, Mother's Day, stuff next year as well, and tinkering with some Facebook ads and things like that. So that's one project. And then I know we were going to talk about the podcast, and that's really something else that has kept my head above water, I guess, so to speak, because I really love this. I really love getting on here every week, and talking about print on demand. And so that was the whole reason I went to the podcast movement, just to kind of get some more ideas and like, what can we do to make this A, better,
Yeah.
B, actually maybe pay me something, because that would be really cool. And C, I don't have a C. Never mind. Remember, I'm being authentic here. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have a
Yeah,
C.
no, that's good. I mean, I think just from what you've shared, I think there will be a lot of opportunity now because you're not necessarily like you said
Right.
previously, you have a lot less overhead and your margins will be a little better. Maybe not retail margins in all cases, but again, with with that lack of overhead that you have to meet, that nut you have to, crack, it might free you up again to dabble in other projects and maybe have multiple print on demand income streams, maybe a KDP thing. I know we've talked about,
Sure.
you and I have always kind of been circling around the idea of how we actually grow and monetize what we're doing here on a weekly basis to help help yourself, to help me a little bit, whatever that looks like. But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of potential now that you'll be. I'm assuming also, are you keeping your VAs or keeping some of the VAs, or how are you handling? Okay, to do a lot of the like integration with Guten and all of that kind of stuff to kind of free up your time.
Yeah, they're so I have 3 VAs right now. One is a bookkeeping VA, financial, she helps me with, payroll and taxes and, and obviously just the books and all of that stuff. She's been working a lot, as we've been transitioning and like, okay, what does it look like to move this money to this company and back and
Yeah.
forth? And, because one company had to purchase from the other company the equipment that I'm taking home to make it, like
Right.
legal, I guess. And then I have 2 other VAs that I actually don't think I've shared this, but so I had a VA that I've talked about on this podcast. Her name's Sanrio, and she worked for me for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years at the beginning, and then she went off to do something else, and she's recently returned in the last couple of months. So
Nice.
it's really awesome, and she's fit right back in, and she's so
Yeah.
good with spreadsheets. And I asked her to do this one thing yesterday or Sunday. I noticed that some of our products weren't in our order desk inventory. And I said, hey, can you, get these 400 files and create these mug templates? There were 400 mugs. And I'm thinking, okay, it's going to take her a while to download all the files, and then she's got to put it on one side, and then she's got to put it on the other side. And, using bulk mockup, she
Yeah.
literally in 6 hours came back and said, hey, that project's finished. Thanks so much. It's already uploaded to Guten, and now those orders or those products will,
Wow.
flow right through now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you did that in such a fast time. So it makes me excited to give her more projects like that she's
Yeah.
very, very well capable of doing in a timely manner. And then, so I have her, and then I have another VA she's more of my assistant, but she's been, her and Sanrio have really just been focusing on taking designs, putting them on products, creating mock-ups, creating the listings, uploading them to Amazon, uploading them to Walmart, and preparing for Q4 to just have tons and tons and tons of offerings out there, so where we can capitalize and make as much money as we can, and then see what 2024 brings after we see how this holiday season goes for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you mentioned, Jeanette. How has she been? Obviously, she's been supportive, but I imagine there was lots of hard conversations to have. Not necessarily. I mean, just from the standpoint of this is where I'm at, and it's obviously it affects her, it affects the kids, it affects. There's such a ripple, which I'm sure you are obviously understand, because that's what you've been processing for the last handful of months. But how has her disposition been in this entire process, as far as her processing, from what you can speak to?
I think so. This, but we're Christians, and so we have a pretty deep rooted faith, and we've been through hard times. I mean, we've been married 25 years. Of course, we've been through hard times, and so we've never been without. We've been in lack. Maybe we've had.
Sure.
We've needed to reach out and get help at times, and we've had stressful, specifically with money. We've had stressful times, and but we've never been left in the lurch, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Right.
And so I think that's really been kind of the rock that we've clung to, and just together, along with some of the stuff I've learned in the last year with the counselor, and some other work I'm doing on just on myself. I think our communication is way better than it was. And so, some of those conversations were hard, and sometimes I didn't come into them in quite the I don't know, in the representing Christ very well. I'd just be like, everything sucks and we're going to run out of money and blah, 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 and she's like, okay, step back from the ledge,
Right. Right. Right.
But yeah, she's been very, very supportive, and she has a deep faith and trust in God, and she's like, he knows our needs better than we know them. So that's been our position. Again, with the ups and downs of me being just an emotional basket case occasionally.
No, that makes sense, and I think you mentioned faith being a big rock for you guys, and obviously you and I share that in common as well. And I think I've always said, if you look at the Psalms and you look at David and how he processed, it was a lot of like, hey, my enemies are going to kill me, where the hell are you? Someone help me, I'm going to die, this all sucks. And then typically the second half of those same chapters were him speaking the truth of what was actually happening. And so sometimes you have to empty out all the crap in order to be filled with what's actually going on, the truth of the situation, so you can see more clearly. So and the counselor definitely helps with that. So kudos to you for doing that, because I know sometimes it's not necessarily, well, I think now in 2023 it's probably a little bit more less avant-garde for a man to get counseling. But man, we all need counseling, like seriously.
Right.
We all need,
every person on the planet.
Everyone needs counseling. You're in therapy. It's something that is super beneficial. So as we're kind of winding things down, man, what do you think off the top of your head with this transition, what does that mean for the POD cast? What can you share with the listeners and myself, because we haven't talked about it? What changes do you possibly foresee for this particular show?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess one of the silver linings that you may have read into by now is that I'm probably going to have a lot more time in my hands,
Mhm.
just not having to run the day-to-day operations of a fulfillment center.
Right.
So I'm hoping, and I'm right in the middle of everything, so I haven't really honestly had the time to just like whiteboard it really
Sure.
and say this is the plan, this is what we want to do. But I mean, and that's the thing about business. You always have ideas. It's all about the implementation. Ideas are a dime a dozen, but
Yeah.
if you don't implement, and I mean, and that's why, or one of the reasons why the print on demand cast hasn't really made a lot of money, and it's not
Right.
that we came into this thing, hey, we want to make money. But that was a nice side benefit of
Sure.
potentially putting out a lot of content.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think I'm going to focus on that. I think, I want to build up our email list, and if you're not signed up, go to printondemandcast.com and sign up for our email list. Eventually I want to put something there that's actually more than like, hey, you'll get a weekly dad joke, maybe,
Yeah. Yeah.
have some type of benefit to the person to give us their email. And it's not just, an exchange for for nothing, and then
Yeah.
from there, I have some ideas like, maybe doing some coaching with, and we've talked a little bit about this in the past,
Mhm.
but I think I'll have more time to like
Right.
maybe do some actual coaching for some people and help them in their print on demand, in their business, help them get organized, help them, kind of see the forest through the trees,
Sure.
and really see it, yeah, holistically. And
Right.
then, I mean, there may be eventually there may be a course. I know course can be a four-letter word for a lot of people. They're like, ah, yeah, now you're a guru, and that's not really the point of that course. Would be more to just kind of condense some of the information that we talk about every week.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I mean, I could see some more community around this print on demand business, in our community on Facebook, and maybe allowing people some access to some special groups that they can really dig in, and we can kind
Yeah.
of do almost virtual coaching, and say, hey,
Yep.
give me what is your actual problem, and maybe you pair that with a basic course on organization of your print on demand business, and then people can ask you questions and all of that stuff. So I think there's a lot of value that we can provide, and I think it's worth something. I'm not like just saying that. I also
Sure.
think that there's other ways to monetize that don't necessarily tap the listeners, just through advertisers, and I
Mhm.
think if we can continue to grow this show and continue to, find new listeners and people that value this type of content, that can turn into, this show being attractive to
Right.
potential advertisers. So, I mean, eh, I am guilty of, every time I listen to the podcast Smartless, with Jason Bateman
Uh-huh.
and Will Arnett and Sean Hayes. And, I don't like to pay for podcasts. So, but every time that ad comes on, I'm like, plus 30, plus 30, plus 30. All
Yeah.
right, back
Yep.
15, and I'm ready
Yep.
to go, So,
Yep.
uh, but I mean, that's just the way I do it. And some
Yeah.
people listen to them and whatnot, but obviously there's value for the advertiser. They wouldn't be advertising on the
Sure.
show.
Sure.
But I guess what I'm saying is I'm giving, if we start doing more ads, I guess we have an ad at the beginning of the show every week,
Right.
and
Right.
probably people are already doing that, but I give you all permission to hit the fast forward 30 seconds
Yeah.
for those ads, if and when
Yep.
they do show up on our
But I'll
stream.
tell you what, I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts that, like the Athletic Greens. I've
Mhm.
fast forwarded through that commercial enough times that now when I think about like, what about supplements? Like, I should Athletic
Athletic
Greens.
Greens.
I've heard the discount code for 6 months. You know what I mean? Or like Chili Slate, the comforter that automatically cools or whatever. Like I'm
Mhm.
thinking it's all suddenly it's in my mind. I fast forwarded through the copy enough to know what it is that I'm skipping because it's the same advertisers all the time on that show
Totally.
because
Totally.
they're just killing that demographic that that advertiser is looking for.
Right.
So, and to Travis's point, like obviously this thing has never been, we never set out to make this thing a money grab. If we had, we would have probably quit by now.
Or
If that
done it
was,
a long time ago.
yeah, exactly. That was the goal. But to Travis's point, it would be a nice side benefit for the time invested, not just ever now going forward, but for the last 3 years, the time that you and I
Mhm.
both have put into it and just making the weekly content. So there could be more of that. Just to you, the listener, there could be more, advertising in the podcast. But I second Travis's permission to just fast forward it. But there also might be other coaching opportunities, which I know we've touched on, and I think one of the cool things about what we can offer in coaching is both you and I have been to a version of the mountaintop in print on demand, and are living and have lived in the valleys as well. So it's not necessarily trying to put on this veneer face of, hey, this is what you have to do to make X amount of dollars and we're perfect and
Right.
we never messed up. Obviously we're both very transparent in the mistakes, but I think there's almost an increased value in talking with a pair of guys who have done a lot and messed up more to help
Yeah.
you also avoid those pitfalls, and
Sure.
say, hey, I thought that was a good idea too in the beginning, but here's what happened, and maybe let's redirect, and I like that idea, but if I could do it again, here's what I would do. So you're getting a lot of
Yeah.
hindsight, and experience through mistakes, which
Mhm.
is the only way that you learn and gain wisdom is from instances where maybe you fell short a couple times. And so that's to anyone that is thinking, oh, this guy that just told me he's scaling back his business wants to offer coaching courses.
Right. Yeah.
No, there's value in that for sure. Like again, in all in an attempt to help you guys avoid the same mistakes that Travis and I have made. So
Right.
a lot of that could be coming as well. I mean, I would love to see this be the podcast that hosts a get together at Printing United,
Yeah.
like the Shirt Show did, or have a booth or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that recording booth. I had booth envy or podcast, and I don't know what it was, but at the Long Beach, the
Yeah.
Shirt Show had
Yeah.
that booth, and I was like, that's pretty badass.
Yeah.
I can't,
You should have seen what some of the booths that they had at the
podcast
podcast movement.
Oh, I
Oh
can't
my
imagine.
gosh.
Yeah.
I'll tell you
Love
about
it.
that offline, but it was pretty nuts.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, Travis, anything else before we wrap this one up? He's coughing his brains out. It's okay. Give him a second.
Yeah, I've been a little bit under the weather the last few days. Got a little runny nose, and it's starting to. We're not going to let it go to the chest. Okay, it's not going there.
No.
I got to sing. That's another
Yeah.
stream of income with my band. I gotta protect the moneymaker here. So, no, the only other thing I was going to tell you, I heard about this new Fleetwood Mac GPS. Have you heard
nice.
about that?
No,
Yeah,
I had no idea.
I mean, Fleetwood Mac, right? Yeah, and they put a GPS out, and and at first I was like, oh, that's really cool, but it's actually totally useless. Every time you try to get directions, it just says you can go your own way.
And there's this week's weekly dad joke. That's awesome. For all the younger people, they're like, what's is Fleetwood Mac like a grilled chicken sandwich at McDonald's? What's Fleetwood Mac? I don't know. It's a band, people. Go listen to it. They're awesome. So all right, yeah. So thank you guys so much for listening, and thank you, Travis, for being willing to kind of bare your soul for all intents and purposes, and just be vulnerable and transparent. And if you guys have any questions for Travis, any advice, encouragement, whatever that looks like that you want to offer, you can always go to printondemandcast.com/Facebook and join the Facebook group. Answer the questions and answer them seriously. I had a request come through the other day that the answers had nothing to do with the question. It was like, what's your favorite episode? And the answer was absolutely. And then one of them was like, do you promise not to spam, whatever one of those questions was? And it was like, I am a blah blah, and he just kind of gave a small resume. I'm like, I don't understand what's happening, and it had nothing to do with print on demand. So answer them intentionally and legitimately, and we will let you pass. Otherwise, it's Gandalf. You shall not pass for you guys. But anyway, go there, join the conversation, join the community. and let us know your thoughts. Again, if you have any suggestions for Travis, ideas, encouragement, you can post them there. I know be greatly appreciated as well. You can go to printondemancast.com/Instagram and /YouTube to find more content. And of course, printondemancast.com no slash is where you go just to find more about the show. Sign up for the newsletter. Like Travis was saying, you get a bonus dad joke and you get some tidbits, oftentimes which either show up in a main event or on a point of interest in the weeks to follow. So if you want to be ahead of the curve of everybody else, if you're listening to this with a friend and you hear us talk about, you know, a new DTF printer, you can say, I already know this, man. I have the newsletter. And they're like, what do you mean? I feel left out. And that's how we do it. We want to make people feel like they're excluded and make them want to be a part of the conversation. So yeah, super excited to see where things go from here as well. Oh, by the way, if you don't like email or you don't like social media, you can email us info@printondemandcast.com. And as I said at the top of the show, wherever you're listening to this, if it's Apple Podcasts, leave us a review, give us a star rating. If you're on Spotify, give us a star rating. Let us know what you think, your favorite episode, your favorite dad joke, your favorite guest, your favorite co-host. I don't care. Him, me, both of us, whatever.
Hey, come on, man. Come on.
Just let us know what you guys think of the show. Why do we want you guys to do that? Because it helps the algorithm. It helps us kind of beat the mysterious algorithm and get this content in front of the people who need to hear this content in order for not only for our show to grow, but for the useful information to get into the ears of those that need to hear it. And hopefully we can help them build their business. Our catch line has always been, we make the shows to help you make sales, and we want to make more. We want to help more people make more sales. So until next time, for Travis, I'm Josiah, and we'll see you next time right here on the Print on Demand cast.
See ya.
Hey, babe. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. We hope you enjoyed the Totally Tubular Show. If you've got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Want to be wicked nice? Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next time, for sure.